Hey everyone, welcome to Brawlhalla Weekly Episode 2. My name is partofthecreed, your host.
And I'm TWKSmash, one of your co-hosts.
And I'm DesignatedAsian, co-host and special guest.
And our actual special guest for today is going to be Techy, one of the leaders in helping to bring sponsors to Brawlhalla. But first we're going to hop into news of the week. Now this week is going to be a little bit different. Instead of talking about patch notes for the week at the end during the balance portion, we're gonna be going a little bit into more the Gauntlet stuff and save that for the end and talk more about patch notes in the beginning. So let's just hop right in. First off is the dev streams. Now this week, because of PAX, we only had one dev stream, but we got to see Barbarian signatures, which is pretty cool. And so we'll sort of run by each signature one by one. The sword neutral signature was similar to Koji's bow neutral sig. It had a very vertical hitbox and hit right above you. I know that a lot of people in chat were sort of basically saying, hey, this is copying Koji.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of really like that. I think we do need more signatures that cover that space, just right above you. Because, honestly, that's where a lot of people are approaching from. Every time that you play, a sword, gun, axe player who's just, bobbing up and down, they're trying to come straight on top of you. And, I don't know, having that nice vertical reach and coverage seems really solid.
Yeah, definitely. I think, especially in all of the new weapons and new characters and legends and signatures that they're releasing, there's a huge focus on having good anti-air movesets, because most of the old signatures on old legends don't really have that nearly as much. Going right on top of someone is something that's really popular in the meta right now, simply because most of the legends don't have anything to cover that. And I think it's pretty interesting that BMG is trying to focus on allowing that to basically get covered in everything that's new. Sword side sig is a chase move. Basically, you charge it up, and apparently the animation is going to have the sword sort of gathering energy, and then it's a burst move in front of Barbarian. Sword down sig. Now this one was really interesting. It almost looked like a light attack. It had a really fast, low hitbox. It hits when you're stacked, and it seems to do a surprising amount of power. Now, of course, they're going to be modifying these as they go along.
Of course.
But do you think this is going to pose a problem, just how ridiculously fast it looks?
No.
No?
Downlight's going to be... without actually using the move, I think Downlight's going to be better. Because Downlight will set up into other things. And as far as kill moves as stacked, odds are you're probably still going to Downlight.
It's going to have to kill before the usual side air option would. So I'm hoping that it's got really good strength behind it, probably good damage too, to kind of justify it over some of the combo. Even though the combo moves you can generally work into some better strings, but I do want to see a little, I don't know, maybe some extra horizontal range or maybe a little extra vertical range above that downlight. Just because they are similar looking moves.
Right, definitely. Although I think it's interesting, as far as things to define the differences between the down signature and the down light, down signature, you'd be able to slide charge and sort of bring down on top of an opponent who's on top of the wall, and basically, hey, I can now time this move a lot better than I could, on regular downlight.
Yeah, isn't this this is the one that Derailed showed off? You can do slide charge and gravity cancel. It has gravity properties to it, so you can kind of use it you do a low jump, gravity cancel down sig, and then you'll kind of move forward and down at the same time. So it's kind of like a Tatsu from Street
I think
Fighter.
You're thinking about the axe down sig.
Is that the axe down one? Okay, never mind.
Yeah. And we'll get to that. Next up is the axe neutral sig, which I thought this was really interesting. This is basically the equivalent of jumping and doing an axe side air, except that, it comes out a little faster, and it seemed like the hitbox might be a little bit bigger, with more punishing frames. But I mean, what do you guys think of that? Because that's definitely a huge anti-air move.
Yeah, I thought that one was really cool just because they do leap up pretty high, like almost full jump height, maybe a little bit more even before like executing the swing, and they cover that distance really quickly. So again, this common thread of the nice anti-air options coming in on the neutral SIGs, and I don't know, I think it's going to end up catching a lot of people that like to float in that area, and I'm looking forward to seeing that.
So Axe has downlight, which is arguably like the best anti-air, right? Like
Yeah.
it's one
Yeah.
it's one of the best anti-airs, if not the best. So not that I think this move is going to be bad. I think this move actually might end up being great. It depends on like, startup and whatnot. But if there is the opportunity to switch between a downlight and use neutral sig in its place, and it kills faster, that could be very, very good. Or it could set up into things like, I think this one has like a horizontal force, so maybe it'll set up into a chase dodge situation, things like that.
Right.
So in general, even though downlight kind of covers the same situations, I think the neutral sig might end up being actually used because of just force properties and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From what I saw, it looked like you jumped higher than like the amount of distance the downlight covers, so that if the opponent is closer to you, you'll use the downlight. But if they're a little bit further away and just in the range where that downlight isn't going to hit, that's where that neutral sig will come into play. So that'll be very interesting. Next up is the Axe side sig, which is a chase move, and it's animal based, which we haven't seen in a little while. What animal that is, I think they're still trying to decide. There are a number of different ideas from each of the members of BMG.
What was it? A ram on the dev stream?
Yeah,
But
they
said
showed-
that's
they showed a
not
ram on it.
finalized yet.
Yeah, I think Raiden wanted some sort of dragon. There were all
I
sorts
think
of different.
any option they go with is probably gonna look dope. I told them I was saying in chat that they should just have Teros's head instead, because I mean Teros is gonna be dead once this character comes out. Let's be honest.
That would be amazing. Just the giant Taros head.
Exactly.
That'd be something.
I can see the 2v2 moves already.
But yeah, it definitely looks like a standard chase move, ending in a big arc. And finally, the one you were mentioning earlier, Duke, is the Axe down sig. This one is a spinning move that's low to the ground, and its range is, at least for now, they're still deciding whether or not this will break the balance or anything. But so far, what we've heard is that the range is dependent on how fast you're moving. So if you do a momentum dodge or fast dodge, and immediately follow that up with a down sig, then like the range is going to be really big. And I think that could be like really good with chaining together moves. Like you could do an Axe neutral light, chase dodge into the Axe down sig, and that will just send them flying.
Yeah, I mean this seems like a cool move. I like they've been kind of playing around with new ways to change up signatures. They had Olgrim with that chainsaw. They're kind of like branching out with the styles of SIGs, but I think this one's gonna be interesting. I like the idea of the gravity on it, where you can do kind of that, like I was saying earlier, gravity cancel down sig. But I think slide charging this move, things like if you do a momentum dodge into a slide charge down sig off the edge, that could be a really, really strong edge guard.
Oh, yeah.
So things like that are going to be really cool to see if anyone can bring that out.
Yeah, definitely. Like it seemed like those hitboxes are going to go like below the player, and so if someone tries to recovery up into the down sig, there's a good possibility with a majority of the recovery moves that's just not going to be able to beat it out, which that'd send them flying downward, and it'd be a huge edge guarding tool.
Would it be a downward? Well, I mean, I guess it will remains to be seen, but would it be a downward spike or would it be a horizontal spike?
It's a good
Of course,
question.
we're not really sure, but I think either option is still really strong. Like, so long as it hits someone in the middle of a recovery, like that in itself makes coming back to the stage incredibly difficult.
Yeah, and I mean, as long as it's not knocking them upwards, then I mean, it's still going to be great in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
I do really like that. It goes farther depending on how fast you're moving. We've seen them apply that to a bunch of like the side light attacks and everything, because I know like the sword and the spear ones have that attached to it. The axe has it attached to it as well. So it's just kind of nice to see that moving its way into other kind of moves. They're, like you said, branching out and just trying a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah, definitely. So that sort of wraps up Barbarian signatures. Super exciting stuff, and it's really cool to see them, get a bunch more options. I know that every single time we're getting a new character, there's all these really unique signatures that are working in totally different ways. And so it'll be exciting. Barbarian is supposed to be coming out this week, hopefully this Wednesday. They said soon TM, but at the same time, when Dolce was talking about it at PAX, he did give a specific date. So hopefully, that's what we're going to come to expect. Speaking of which, devs are at PAX East this year. As we sort of predicted on the last podcast episode, there were fists. That was the big unveil. I believe the official name is Gauntlets. And we'll be taking a closer look at that later in the podcast.
Oh, okay, this is my point. So all right, we're going to community news, and first up on the docket, Team Inertia, kind of in the air right now. Antipop, the former leader of Inertia, has left the clan. He's on my friends list. He's Vex now? Is he Vex?
Yes, I believe Inertia is Vex now.
Yeah, he is Vex. I don't. Vex is like picking up people. So if you have a name that starts with a letter of the alphabet, like send a message to Vex apparently, because they're grabbing up people right now. Obviously good on Antipop, but that leaves the leadership of the Inertia clan kind of in the air. Nobody really knows if they're going to be continuing on. They are technically signed up for the BCS 2v2 clan battle that's going to be happening on Sunday, but no one really knows if they're still going to play without their leadership.
I will say, I was looking just today, and I believe one of the members of Inertia put up a Reddit post saying, "Hey, we're accepting new members." So I think they're trying to rebuild what sort of happened to Inertia, but it'll be definitely interesting to see whether or not they can do that successfully.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the similar vein, the same thing kind of happened to Z, where BX3 picked up a lot of members and their leadership kind of went with it. And now we're talking about C on this list of things, is that they the remaining members kind of banded together and they're like, we're going to keep Z running and we're going to actually branch out to the rest of EU. Z is arguably one of the strongest teams in the EU. I mean, possibly second to BX3, depends on opinions. And their system, I didn't fully read the post, but it was essentially that they're going to be looking at the EU community. They're partnering up with the other teams in the EU, Web, 3DT, AI, MAOP. I don't know. EU teams, MNA. And they're kind of looking at them and they're saying, hey, if you have strong players, we're going to, I guess, pick them up, use it kind of like minor leagues and major leagues. If you prove yourself in your little EU clan, maybe you get to move on up to Z and be part of the competitive Z team. It's interesting how that's going to work out. I'm curious to see if anyone really, sticks with that kind of form, or if BX3 just kind of picks them up before Z can. I don't know.
I think that's really interesting. Just the way that they're kind of running it. Okay, you don't have to leave your team, your current clan. It's more of like I think they said it as like a training partnership or like an alliance kind of thing. So that way they do have all these big like in-house practice sessions that they will run. They'll run some events and just they want everybody in the EU scene to kind of come together and participate in those. But you don't have to leave the clan that, you've made all these friends with, all these connections. You might have specific 2v2 teams, maybe a Brawl Ball team or two. But, yeah, I don't know. It's a really interesting idea just because it's not something that we've seen yet in the community. So it's something completely different, completely new. And I don't know. I really hope it takes off and does well for them.
Yeah, it's really good on them to sort of build more of a community than really, hey, here's a bunch of separate clans, we're all gonna fight each other and have these rivalries. And rivalries are cool, but building a nice little clan, foster growth for the EUC. And I know that a lot of EU players are unhappy right now with how much EU Brawlhalla scene there is. There aren't as many tournaments as they'd like. And of course, a lot of the sponsorships that are happening right now are very NA centric, but hopefully that's going to change in the future. We're going to get more EU sponsors. and it's good to see them try to develop that.
Yo, EU wants to complain, but where's the Brazilian sponsorships? Where's the Latin America, the SEA, the Australia teams? Where they at? Granted, where the players at, right? Like Tiger should be sponsored because he is what 804 on ladder. Like
that win rate.
Other than that,
yeah, definitely. The bigger the game gets, the more we'll get international players all over the globe. It's super exciting. I know that there's definitely esports sponsors all over the globe, and hopefully we'll be getting more of that in the future.
Yeah, and moving on from the community news, that brings us now to our tournament news. There's been a lot. I know we said that last week, but there continues to be a lot. This is a big month. So, since the last time we spoke, there's been now 2 more BCS tournaments, week 3 and week 4. So, now week 3, EXO actually entered that one. He was there, he was able to attend. He took first place. So that actually ended up giving him all the points that he needed just in that one tournament to make it into top 16. And I think, as we all know now, the BCS finals are coming up. Those top 16 players are going to be invited for that $750 prize pool. So EXO's one of them. So keep an eye out for that. And the other placings went to Pugsy, who, again, massive amount of points. He's taken, second twice and won another or something?
Yeah, so he won the first week. He got second to Pickled in week 2, mostly because Pugsy had to leave and wasn't able to play after the reset. And then in week 3, EXO completely won it out in grand finals. No reset or anything like that. Pugsy coming up from the loser's bracket. And then he didn't play in week 4.
Yeah, so Pugsy has a mountain of points. So he's good. He's going to be really high in the seeding. And then Crocky ended up taking 3rd place there. So I think that should place him pretty well, especially given that the results for week 4 that we just had happen the other day. LDZ taking first place. And I mean, he's been on a tear, an absolute tear in a number of tournaments, Gravy Cancels, Brawl Leagues, now BCS.
I know after the last patch, he was concerned. Oh no, Qatar Nair got a little nerfed, and that's one of the moves he uses a lot. But man, he really showed his strength, and that definitely didn't seem to hinder him at all.
Yeah, definitely not. And then, we just mentioned Crocky. He took 2nd in week 4. So another one who's got a ton of points, and we'll see how the placings shake out, where he's going to sit once the points are distributed. And then we've got Stevenator taking 3rd place. So that is it for BCS. I know we've got the finals coming up, so keep an eye out for that. But then the other organizations that are running things, we had Gravy Cancel. Everybody knows their Gravy Cancel Sunday tournaments. There was one on the 17th, actually. And Pugsy took 1st place in that. Egg Soup coming in 2nd. EXO in 3rd. So we saw kind of this same kind of back and forth between Pugsy and EXO a little bit in these top placings. Not really an uncommon sight, but I don't know. There were a lot of strong players in this tournament. It was a stacked turnout. I mean, did any of you guys get to catch the action on that one?
Yeah, I definitely saw a little bit. I remember one of the notable things that happened was Pugsy pulled out a Barraza pick and beat EXO with it. And, that was the week before the patch, and everyone's like, oh my god, Pugsy's showing everyone Barraza's not that weak. He doesn't need the buffs everyone's asking for. Definitely in the patch, he got a little bit of love. But absolutely, Pugsy did a fantastic job in that Gravy Cancel.
Yeah, and I mean, all that is going to lead into the Gravy Cancel Invitational. So, they've got their invited players so far. We're clocking in LDZ, Pugsy, Doppy, Egg Soup, EXO, Twilight, Zaloxery, Crocky. They're in the top 8 seeds, number of other players. And it's actually going on right now as we're
it's
recording this.
literally happening. Burthen is up 2-1 against Beta. I have it open on the other window.
Oh my god.
But yeah, LDZ is their first seed because LDZ has won like 4 gravy cancels in a row until last
crazy.
week.
Yeah.
Let's see. I see Crocky and Shugam are on the list. Egg Soup, Exo, Tybo, Pugsy's Alongsary, Absent, Doppy, Burthen, Twilight, Jellyfish, Bishop, Remy, Antipop, Boomy, Hella, Jaximus, Rhymes, I think I said Burthen and Beta, are all
crazy
playing right now.
lineup. Like this is some of the strongest players absolutely in the game. Names you should all be looking out for now and in the future.
Yeah, that is a stacked tournament. So I hope everyone does well. I hope it's, been great turnout. Everything's going well. Everyone plays well. Lots of great matches to watch because I'm definitely going to have to shoot on over there, check out the archives after this wraps up.
Sorry that, we couldn't really get the results to you because of the timing of the podcast, but best of luck to everyone who's participating in the tournament right now. With that, I think it's time that we introduce our guest, Techie. Techie, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. All right.
Hello. So, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
All right. So, for those of you who don't know, I'm Techie, or Kevin Fraken, as other people know me, and I've been more or less been working as the sponsor guy recently as in the Brawlhalla community. So.
All right. So, you say you're the sponsor guy. What exactly does that entail? What do you do?
Well, up until this last week, it pretty much just was entirely just talking to some of the tier 2 mid-range sponsors, trying to get them interested in the scene. As of this week, though, I actually have the title Community Esports Liaison, so I'll be working with the BMG devs and working to try to make Brawlhalla a legitimate esport from here on out.
Very exciting.
Cool.
That is awesome. And then, going for this, I know you said you were working with some of the tier 2 sponsors, looking at some others. This isn't your first go at it. You've built yourself quite the resume, right? Most people may not be too familiar, so why don't you give us a little rundown of that?
All right. So, I kind of got into esports back when I started university quite a few years back, and it was actually when League of Legends started their collegiate scene, and I was one of the very first organizers, and I helped set that all up and get that going. So that was my first touch into esports and organizing things. But when I left university, I actually moved up to Norway and was working with with a bunch of the Norwegian esports chairmen, and was working on some LANs and just kind of figuring out how all the competitive scenes work, talking to players. In fact, one of the LANs that I got to help work was probably 10 minutes away from where EXO lives up in Norway, so
Oh, wow.
missed a great opportunity there. But yeah, and then at the time I also worked for Team Solo Mid as a highlighter, so I got to see kind of all the background stuff for all the teams and what all the organizations like to see in their players, and kind of what they do when they want to pick people up. So it's kind of what I've been doing before now.
Very cool.
Nice.
Cool. And for people who are looking to become sponsored, what advice can you give them?
I would say start making yourself a professional resume. So mark down every placement you've had in the top 8 in a tournament. Keep track of your rank. Try to be active, and if you can stream, do that. Because the big thing I tell all the players when they're starting to look at potentially being sponsored is, with a lot of these organizations, it's 80% media, 20% gameplay, where they work with you to get their name out as well as getting your name out, and it's a mutually beneficial deal. So it's there's that, and then whenever it comes to actually talking to a sponsor, find someone who's knowledgeable, because if you don't know what you're signing or you don't know what you're getting into, you can easily end up doing something you don't want to agree to for the next several months. So just kind of be careful, but it's usually a really big deal.
in the Brawlhalla community, we've had a little bit of trouble with some sponsors way back.
Yeah, that's
a
exactly
certain
why I
one,
joined the scene.
Com Gamers, who may or may not have duped a number of players. So, as Brawlhalla sort of grows, hopefully we can get a little more professional advice from people like you, Techie, and make Brawlhalla a more professional grade esport. Speaking of which, I know a lot of people in the Brawlhalla community are unsure about how big esports can get, and there's a lot of comparisons to games like Smash, which is pretty big on esports, but there's some doubts. Do you think, Techie, that Brawlhalla has a future in professional grade esports?
Oh, absolutely. Brawlhalla has like all the successful things needed in it to make it an entertaining esport. So like it's simple, so the casual player can kind of play it, get into it, and watch it. But also the tournaments can be interesting because it has a high enough skill ceiling to where like players who are like just absolutely the best can visibly be seen as that, and so it's really entertaining. We've actually got some of the most famous sponsors right now looking into Brawlhalla. So like when asked if it could be a professional grade esport, I say we're like a month away from it being that. So it's like things are going now.
Yeah, that's really exciting.
Wow. And, just talking about the future, there's one main event that I know everybody's got in mind. They announced Brawlhalla World Championship for this fall in Atlanta, Georgia. $50,000 plus prize pool, and they said more information to follow. So when will we be getting a bit more information on this event?
So, me working in the esports scene, I've been kind of talking with BMG, throwing ideas at them, and seeing what all we can do. And info-wise, what I can tell you is kind of like, it's like, I can't tell you where it's going to be or what day it is, but like, we're hoping to do several different events at it. We're hoping to do stuff like allow like players to put some money into it by like having specific items in game that they can purchase that would just go towards the pot for players.
Nice.
Like there's a lot of details we've been working on. One of my big projects right now is starting to find like partners for it, and I've been spamming Tavares with just so many different ideas. But here in the next like few months, like starting this next week is when we just focus super hard on Worlds. So you should start expecting things to start coming out. That's like the big thing now, because I'll be switching my focus from like just sponsors to like still working with them, getting players hooked up, because that's hugely important to me, but also like doing everything I can to make sure we get the most legitimate Worlds setup we can. So there'll be definitely big news to follow in like the next few weeks.
Awesome. I definitely look forward to that.
Cool. So speaking of Worlds, you talked a little bit about community being able to put into the pool with, you know what, I feel like you answered. How can the community help out with the Worlds in the coming months?
Well,
Set
honestly,
up for the
there's a
purchase of
lot.
items that go toward the pool.
Sorry.
Also feedback for the devs.
Yeah, okay. So I mentioned that, but there's like a whole lot more the community can do, because when it comes to esports, it's entirely about the community and what people are willing to put forward. So like any tournaments people are willing to do, anything like that encourages the scene, helps give players like even help give some players like fan bases. So like the BCS stuff is fantastic. Just supporting anything that's going on and watching the streams, helping players out, like that is all great. And if you're passionate about the scene, just email some of the devs, see if there's a place you can help out, because there's a lot you can do for it. And yeah, so it's like, sure, there's like the purchasable stuff, but as a community, like anyone can get involved if they're willing. So
Okay, well,
Yeah.
since my question was kind of stolen, I got a question. All right.
okay, fire
So,
away.
so Worlds is gonna happen. we're pushing, like, I guess you're pushing for sponsorships. Sponsorships are they've been increasing, right? We got Vex,
Oh yeah,
BX3,
I'm
Kingdom
working with like
Esports.
5 right now, so
Right. So it's been
Good.
increasing.
Mhm.
But my question is, why aren't sponsors waiting till after Worlds, right? Why aren't they waiting to see who wins Worlds and being like, that's the dude, I'm a sponsor. I'll
Because
take the top 3, put them on TSM. Like, why not wait till then, and instead of being like, oh, well, maybe we should grab them early. Like what's the mentality behind these kind of things?
you don't get any attention if you do it after Worlds. Like, right now, Worlds is like a big draw. There's going to be a lot of coverage for it. It'll probably be on the front page of Twitch, like all that. And since BMG announced it's going to be an annual thing, it's a lot safer of a thing for sponsors to potentially pick players up. So it's better to actually get in early, because then you can start like publicizing that you have this player. It's for this game that's having a big tournament with a lot of money on the championship. There's a really active scene developing right now, so a lot of people are getting excited about it. Like when I was talking to the guys over at Vex before they picked up the players, all they really needed to know was that the community was passionate and that there was stuff going on. Like, and so
Alright, but, like,
sponsors. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, but like, okay, what if like Cloud9 picks up EXO, right? Everyone going in like, EXO's gonna win this, right? EXO gets knocked out like round 1. Like, how pissed would Cloud9 be that they like kind of gambled on the guy, and he gets knocked out round?
I have to imagine that's
Like-
a risk that's going to be taken anyway. Because, I mean, you know, they could pick up EXO after Worlds, and there's still a risk that in future tournaments he'd just do badly. I feel like, you know, someone like EXO, he's built a reputation by winning other tournaments. Like, I don't think he has to prove himself by also winning Worlds.
Okay, so like when it comes to that, it falls back on the whole like media thing where, sure, winning Worlds is a huge buff to them, to like anything they're pushing on that side of the scene. But say EXO doesn't perform, well, that's unfortunate. They can still say he went to Worlds. He participated. He is considered one of the world's best. And then like contracts, they renew every 3 months. So like if someone say falls really short or stops playing, they can just pick up a different player. So it's not too risky an investment. So it's
Cool.
pretty safe.
All right, that sounds really exciting. Anything else you can tell us that that people can get excited for in the coming few weeks and months?
Yeah. From my side of things, like just with the sponsor work I've been doing the last few weeks, I think we're in talks with 3 really big sponsors, and I've got like a list of 20 other tier 1 sponsors that are all into FGC and esports that I'm going to be talking with. And there's a lot of interest right now in a bunch of organizations, so hopefully we'll be seeing the sponsor scene fill out. Also, I'm going to start trying to work on a project that'll help get the esports scene between worlds, and like every year we'll try to fill that out with something that I've been working on, and I'll start trying to work with the community on that soon. So we should hopefully be seeing some pretty big tournaments and stuff coming here.
Yeah, it's super exciting. And so, you know, to reiterate to the people listening and watching, like, get out there, get involved. Esports in Brawlhalla is getting big. So, you know, if you think you haven't even a little chance, you're in Diamond, maybe even High Plat, like, get out there, play some tournaments, start some streams, you know, see what you can do. Techie's your guy over here. He's gonna be working with sponsorships.
Yeah, I'm totally down to talk to anyone who wants to talk to me. Like, that's part of what I do. So hit me up if you have any questions.
And yeah, thank you for letting us take some of your time.
No problem. It was fun. Thank you guys.
All right, good luck. See you, Techie.
Bye.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to move into the balance and meta discussion section of the podcast. Normally, this is where we take a look at the last patch notes and basically break it down. But as we all know, this week was pretty special. BMG unveiled the Gauntlets. And so what we're basically going to be doing is taking it this move set step by step, talking about each and every move. If you're listening on iTunes or something, we'll try to basically explain it with words. But of course, the best experience is to watch it on YouTube, where you can see each of the moves down below in this sort of frame by frame reference. So the first move is the side air, and I think this one is really, really special because I don't think we have a side air that even comes close to how Gauntlet side air works. Basically, when you do a Gauntlet side air, your character will move forward with the fist, outstretched, and if the side air connects, he'll hit your opponent and then hit him again with the other fist down diagonally. And what I think is really, really unique about this move is the fact that it takes the range associated with most of the weapons, like sword or axe or hammer, that has a very good horizontal range, and combines it with the diagonal facing force that the bow and the katars have. Because the bow and katars are limited by the fact that they have a shorter range. But this one now has a long range and it hits them diagonally. Like, does that seem a little too much?
That's dumb. I haven't seen these things, so every time you explain something, that's dumb. All right, like,
all right.
There's nothing else to say. That it's got if it has the range, like more than the Qatar or bow Sarah range, if it's got that much horizontal range, and then it's going to have a downward force, that's dumb. It's going to be insanely good on the edge. It's going to be insanely good on the ground. Imagine a ground Sarah, it's going to bounce them off the ground, then you got to set up into something else that's probably dumb. That's dumb.
I think we got Designated Asian's take on the move.
just working with some of the theory crafting here about like how it looks and how it seems like it might work. I like to kind of call it's like an upside down lance side light in the air. It's got all the movement during the startup and everything, but the catch is the gauntlets don't look like their hitboxes really have that much range away from your character. So it kind of like wraps that into the move as movement. So I feel like, I don't know, if you're trying to go toe to toe with somebody in the air, and let's say you're facing, somebody like Twilight or something who's tossing out the sword side airs really well, you're just going to run face first into it because they've got the extra range and coverage from their move. So you're going to have to pick your spots a little bit, but you can cover a lot of distance, and then it sets up really well for a number of things. I know Designated Asian was just talking about like maybe doing it on stage, getting a ground bounce sort of thing into something else. I mean, edge guards, obviously. So I don't know. I'm really interested in it. I want to try it out.
You mentioned how, it'll have a hitbox that's really close to the player. The only other side air that actually like moves the character horizontally is the lance, which is it has the extra added benefit of the fact that the tip of the lance is very far extended outside of the player. And so that really helps them. On the gauntlets, that side air is going to be right beside the player. So I think that if we're talking about two side airs hitting each other, the gauntlets are going to be pretty weak. Any sword or hammer side air that is clashing directly with that is going to beat out the gauntlets. But of course, the gauntlets, I think, are going to do a better job in this chase scenario where,
right,
hey, the character's moving away from me. Do a side air, catch up to them real quick, hit them once, hit them again, hit them diagonally down. That sets up edge guards and all sorts of things. So absolutely, it's powerful, but I definitely think there are going to be ways around it.
Yeah, I just want to touch real quick. You mentioned lance side air, and like the important distinction between the two, which is really cool to see, is the lance side air has that horizontal movement after the startup. Like during the startup, you're kind of stationary. The gauntlets one, it seems like all the movement happens during startup as well. So it's kind of like that nice instant burst of movement, whereas the lance is like a pause and then the burst. So right. I'm very curious.
Lance side air is definitely considered one of the weaker side airs in the game. So Gauntlet side air, definitely something to look out for. It'll be really interesting. Moving on to the Dare. Dare is very much similar to the gun down air, which basically puts down a flurry of hitboxes. I can already see
Gun Dare's dumb. Make another Gun Dare.
puts down a flurry of hitboxes, which you know, I think gun down air has a lot more range than what I saw from Gauntlet's down air. Gun down air, you can basically like jump up, pop a little bit, and you know, if your opponent runs into it, then that's great, but it's spaced outward so that it's more of a defensive tool of, oh, he's approaching me, I'm just going to pop up, do a gun down air, hopefully he'll run into it, it'll be great. If your opponent is doing an attack towards you and you try to do a gauntlet down air, I don't think that hitbox is going to be far enough away from you to cancel out whatever move your opponent is making. So I think that's going to be that key difference between Gun's Dare and Gauntlet's Dare. But of course, you know, a lot of people aren't a fan of the Gun Dare anyway. So
yeah, I mean, all right. So
it's gonna come down to frames for me. If it has a low startup and a reasonable amount of active frames, then hitboxes be damned. Because if you miss a move and you can instant dare, like, that's dumb. That's my opinion. TWK, you probably have a smarter answer.
I mean, like, I'm actually taking a look at it right now in Glitch Feed's nice interview that they got to do with Dolce at PAX East just a couple days ago. Yeah, and it just, I don't know, it shows all the moves pretty nicely, and I'm just looking at the down air. I don't know, with the startup, and it doesn't have nearly the range that the gun down air does. Because obviously the gun's got the, you know, removed blasts from the player.
And of course, gauntlets are on your fist. Like, I think that's one of the big things about all of Gauntlet's moves. They're powerful, but they're all very close to the player. So being able to punish it during a move is something that you'll want to be looking out for.
Yeah, and I think with that, since it doesn't have the range, with the startup that it'll have, I'm not really convinced that you can do a jump down air to hit somebody on the ground like you can with the guns, and kind of what makes those rising down airs from guns such a safe move. I feel like the gauntlets, you have to kind of be in a better position, you've got to be a little bit more committed for them, and I don't know, I don't really see it having kind of the same stigma attached to it as the gun down air does, but again, we'll have to see when they get released.
I mean, with fast fall, you can kind of shove that hitbox in, like,
right, but
it's not also gonna be as easy,
right?
I mean, that depends what the recovery is, because you know, a falling gun down air, lots of recovery. Nobody really likes to do that, like coming down on somebody on the ground with a gun down air. They usually rise with it, because if you miss, well, now you get punished by like a nice big down light combo.
And I think gauntlets are going to force you to come down with them because, as TWK mentioned, you can't really do a rising down air with gauntlets from what we've seen. And so you'll have to jump, fast fall, do a down air, and depending on recovery frames, like, that may not even be something you'd want to do. So, you know, definitely BMG can shape that move to not be nearly as powerful as it is on the guns right now. All right. Next is the neutral air. Neutral air is pretty interesting. It reminds me a little bit of hammer recovery with a slightly less range, being that basically it's a grappling move. It will take your opponent, you know, slap his hands around him and then just throw him downward. It doesn't look like it has nearly as much force as a hammer recovery, but it does look like it's a great move for setting something up in the future. Like, you know, I don't know exactly how these frames are going to work, but maybe a neutral air into a down air is something that could be an option. You know, you throw any opponent that's above you downward and then hit him with a down air, and suddenly you've got all this set up. But it's interesting to see another grapple move in the light attack section. I don't know what you guys think of that.
I mean, I think I really like it aesthetically, just because the big clap and throw. I don't know, it's awesome. I love the look of it. I love the flavor of it. I enjoy that it sets up so well for the other gauntlet moves. This does kind of start forming the idea of like, okay, well, how am I going to play against gauntlets? Because, you know, it's like shaping up to be, okay, that seems like a really aggressively powerful moveset. But I don't know, just seeing the neutral air, the coverage that it has compared to its other moves, if you're above the gauntlets, you don't have too much to fear. And I think that, I don't know, to me, this move kind of strikes that note of like, yeah, the gauntlets don't really want to be below anybody. They want people below them. And the neutral air is more so just like a position rearrangement tool than an actual like kill move or power move or anything like that. So, I don't know, just the flavor I'm getting from that, Gauntlet's probably not going to be too good fighting from below.
Yeah, okay, so I guess worth noting is that all of this is basically speculation
Of
on the
course.
moves. If Sparky were here, he'd probably tell you that this move's dumb. All right, because he has been a very adamant and not whatever the reverse of proponent is. He hates hammer recovery. It's for me this Nair. It's gonna come down to frame data because of the way the hitboxing more than likely will work. Because you know it's gauntlets, it's gonna be close to the chest. It's not gonna have that range that the hammer recovery is. I don't think it's gonna be a huge issue aside from maybe if you can string it or if you can, like TWK was saying, use it for repositioning. But I don't think it's gonna be anything like massively threatening. And then the other big thing is it's gonna be priority. And I guess to the degree of going back to hitboxing, what would be dumb is if it worked the way that bow nair worked, where you can do a falling nair on someone, because that would be really, really, really weird to do a falling nair on someone who's already on the platform and then kind of clap them up and then back down below you. I don't know, but we'll see how that ends up facing out. But I think this move is the one that's probably like the least dumb so far.
Like dude said, you know, I think one of the nice things about this whole discussion is that we get to take a look at the moves before they go into the game. But this, of course, did not give us insight into, hey, exactly what combos are going to be able to do, because frame data is constantly changing, BMG is constantly changing, and a lot of the feedback that you guys give, you know, if you want to leave some comments in places and basically tell BMG, hey, you know, we don't want another gun down air. Make sure there's lots of recovery frames or something. Things like that. And they're, you know, BMG is very good at listening to the community in that way. So I think this is a nice chance to sort of take a look at these moves and think about what potential they could or could not have. So moving on is the sidelight. So I'm not 100% sure between the difference between the sidelight and the downlight. From what it looked like, I believe the move you're looking at down now is the sidelight. But basically, the character crouches down and does this giant sweeping uppercut. And he not only does he do an uppercut, he'll also move forward a pretty good distance. So it seems like a great move for chasing down people, popping them up a little bit, and then following up with some sort of air move. I know that in the video, one of the things that they were doing a lot was sidelight into jump neutral air. And so, you know, you'd pop them up, you jump up a little bit, take them, grab them down, and then follow up with another move. So that seems pretty cool. What do you guys think?
Yeah, again, I mean, it's another one of those setup tools. I mean, all these different moves from the gauntlets seem to flow into one another really well. Kind of like when they first unveiled the bow, and they're like, oh, look, the sidelight goes nice into the downlight, into the neutral, or whatever air move or anything. And it just kind of had this sense of, you know, just a nice leading routes that you can take through its moves and combo paths. Except kind of taken that to the nth degree. Because, I mean, as we all know, bow has, you know, slowly evolved over the course of its lifespan. And now it's mostly people spend that time in the air. The ground moves, they recently got some love amid, you know, some nerfs from the air moves. So it's kind of like molding it back towards that. But again, like the gauntlets just look so good with that. So I don't know, the sidelight, just another great setup tool.
I mean, so you talked about bow. I think I was holding off till we finished through all of the weaponry, but honestly, from what I've seen of gauntlets, it looks like it's gonna be just a very frustrating weapon to fight against. And to that regard, right, bow originally it had that side light, down light into a neutral air or into a neutral light, and BMG kind of heard feedback that being stuck in that stun lock is really really frustrating and really really unfun. To that point, Katars kind of had a similar effect, right? Like they became more stringy, and they kind of tried to cut down on just general like true combos with that. And this is just seems like another one of those. It's gonna keep you in strings, and unless you're mashing dodge constantly, you're gonna get really really frustrated against this weapon. That's what it looks like to me. Obviously, this footage is made to make the weapon look amazing. You know, it's trying to like, you know, sell the weapon to you guys to make you guys hype for Gauntlet. I understand that. But the way these hitboxes work, obviously it's going to depend on force direction and recovery times and startup times more so than anything else. Because like for example, if the Nair force is just straight down and the recovery is really really short and you can infinite with the Nair, that's gonna be stupid, right? So like I don't know where I was going with it besides that this weapon looks dumb. And I expect it to get it's going to come out. People are going to get annoyed with it. I feel like it's going to get nerfed. And the downside is this thing doesn't have what Bow has, which is Bow Dare and Bow Sair and Bow Nair. You know,
Right.
Bow's air game is it's strong. And part of that is the Bow Dare is actually, it's an extended range. It's got a lot of force and you can get kind of like that gimp with that. Gauntlets aren't going to have that range. It's going to have to get on top of people and kind of like keep that pressure on. And to that point, I think that people are just going to play parry against Gauntlet, and people are going to get annoyed when they're playing Gauntlet against parry players.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned bow, because I think that bow's down air and side air causes the issue of having people who play more defensively on it. Like I think when bow was first released, BMG sort of wanted to push this idea of, hey, you know, going aggressively with some of these bow ground moves, but over time people didn't really appreciate the bow ground moves very much. They just weren't nearly as good as some of the air moves, and the air moves basically consisted of, hey, jump, do a down air, and if your opponent doesn't run into that, then do a couple more down airs. Like, you know, try to keep pushing these long extended hitboxes from ranges where your opponent can't really punish you for them. And, you know, it's, I think BMG's goal with gauntlets is to create a weapon that you can't really hang back with nearly as much. You know, they want to push a more aggressive playstyle weapon that says, hey, if you want to, you know, if you want to attack or if you want to win this, you got to get in there and you got to actually attack.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know, seeing how a lot of these moves are designed, the side light, even the down light, the side air, just a lot of these ones that propel the character forward because they have the hitboxes close to them. And especially if these moves have that similar feature of the faster you are going, the farther they will dash when doing them. I don't know, I think that'll lend itself pretty well. Just because if people do try and play that kind of distance parry, I don't know, it seems like the gauntlet moves may be able to close that distance so much faster than any of the other weapon sets. Even though the hitboxes are, you know, kind of close to the chest.
It's gonna need a balancing, right? Like there's got to be something that's gonna beat gauntlets. If gauntlets are strong enough to get through parry, get through like aggressive spacing, aggressive gun spacing, like because that's arguably the most oppressive spacing, I guess. If gauntlets can get through those hitboxes fast enough and things like that, and it's that strong on top of you,
What is it weak
then
against?
what's the weakness, right?
Right.
The fact of the matter is gauntlets is the point of a weapon like gauntlet is it's going to be fast, but it's going to be close to you. It's kind of like guitars but on steroids, right? It's going to be more fast and close. So the solution to guitars is just space, right? You use axe dare to stop the approach, right? But when you have something like this where you've got the Sair to approach, you've got potentially falling Nair to approach, you've got a sidelight that has a lot of horizontal distance. If that gets through spacing, then what? Then you got just a stupid weapon. which is what I'm saying this weapon is right now.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean-
we'll have to see how they balance that.
Just to that point, the way that it seems to me currently, I don't know, with the way that it moves forward and it has those close hitboxes, the answer that jumps out at me first, just based again on speculation of this little bit of footage that we've seen, is that sometimes the best defense is a good offense. And it's kind of going to engender a bit of that, okay, they're coming in at me. If I go and attack first, then I'm going to beat out their hitbox as they're charging in because I've got that extra range. And I don't know, we can see definitely see some scrappy fights, especially even during when Gauntlet gets those strings on the characters. If it knocks them out a little bit too far and they don't have the frame advantage from the stun, you know, they might be able to sneak in a neutral light or like a quick down light or something as the Gauntlet person is doing their next rush-in move before they can even actually get in range for the hitbox to overlap. But, I mean, again, all purely speculation, and we'll have to see when the weapon gets released.
Moving on to the next few moves. Neutralite, pretty basic. It looks a lot like the unarmed Neutralite. Unarmed Neutralite, very strong weapon. I know that sometimes you can get away with doing like anywhere between 1 to 4 unarmed Neutralites in a row. Although I think that some of that has to do with like surprising your opponent. I'm not sure necessarily if that's purely the strength of the move. Although of course, you know, BMG I'm sure will have to make sure that the Gauntlet Neutralite isn't even stronger than the already strong unarmed Neutralite. After that is the Downlight. We only saw this once in the entire footage, but from what we could see, it's basically this punch into the ground in front of you that I believe pops up your opponent a little bit. It is a little weird because Sidelight also seems to pop up your opponent. So the difference between when you use Sidelight and when you use Downlight, I'm not sure where that difference exists and how pertinent that's going to be.
It's probably stacking.
Yeah.
That'd be my guess.
That looks like a pretty significant difference because Sidelight, absolutely, you run forward before you pop up your opponent. But
right. And I imagine that's
both
probably going to wrap into startup time as well. The Downlight probably becomes active a lot sooner than the Sidelight. Just guessing. I don't know.
But both seem to, you know, push your opponent a little bit upward. So, again, a lot of setup moves for extra strings afterward. Next is the recovery, which, again, we didn't see that very much, but it looked a lot like unarmed recovery. It's just a simple, you know, punch upward, straightforward recovery, nothing too special about it. And finally is the ground pound, which is a unique ground pound in that you can actually angle it left and right after you initiate the ground pound. Now, of course, this does not mean, hey, you put down the ground pound and you get to fly all over the map. It's not nearly that severe. It's more of a put down the ground pound and, you know, select left or right, and it'll start to drift in that direction, and that direction only is what we heard from Dolce, I believe.
Yeah, that one definitely looks really fun, especially with, you know, some of these hits like its side air and everything that kind of sends them down at a bit of a diagonal. You know, you used to have to spend a lot of jumps, other movement, maybe your air dodge to kind of reposition for a ground pound, unless you were kind of banking on your opponent just running into it. Whereas this one, it kind of seems like, again, everything leads nicely into one another. And being able to kind of angle that ground pound to either side, I don't know, I think it's going to go off really well from things like maybe the neutral air or the side air. And just kind of, I don't know, that's definitely an interesting one.
It's going to be, I think it's going to be, this is going to sound, I'm trying to formulate the thought of this. Okay, so Creed, you put out that edgeguard video, right? There's the push-off column and there's against the wall. This thing now covers both. It's as simple as that. If your dodge is burned, this thing now covers both options, and your best option now is to fight rather than to try to dodge. Whereas previously on the edge, you have to kind of not necessarily like guess, but you kind of have to predict, oh, he's gonna dodge to the wall, oh, he's gonna push off when I try to go for this ground pound. Now you cover both with this move, and that's really good.
Right.
That's a
and
really
possibly
strong-
overpowered. And I was definitely thinking about that. And I think one of the ways BMG could balance, or maybe already have balanced, it's hard to tell from the little bit of footage that we've gotten so far. But, you know, either it'll have more angle when you angle it, or it'll have less. Because basically, in one option where you have more, it will fly you into this area that's more predictable to your opponent. Like once you hit that direction, your opponent will be like, oh, they're drifting to the left, which means all I have to do is like go under them or something like that, right? The other option is, of course, you make the drift smaller so that if he aims toward the wall, you'll have enough room in, you know, the push-off column to avoid that move. And I mean, definitely a move that will drift between those two areas is really powerful, but it can only be in one area at a time. Like, it's not like it covers some huge space, you know, a la spear ground pound or something like that. So I think the ability to dodge it is there, but it'll definitely be up to how the hitboxes work and how much that drift exists, and of course how easy it is to control that. All those factors are going to play a huge role, but at the very least, it is something that's a little unique.
Yeah, if I had to sum up like what I think the play style of the gauntlets is going to be, like ideally, from just what we've seen, it's kind of like, just again, these really nice strings all leading into each other to kind of position for an edge guard, because I didn't really see too much force off of a lot of the moves, other than like maybe the recovery and the ground pound. So on stage, if you want to get a kill, it's going to have to pretty much be like these strings into recovery ground pound or something, or just a really nice edge guard, or rely on signatures. Now with that, I really like these air moves. I really like seeing the movement they have, where they position people, how it sets up into things like the ground pound. And I think it's kind of designed to have those really nice edge guards without having to spend your jumps. So that way you can go really far and aggressively off stage, get the hardcore edge guards, and then you can still recover, because, you know, some weapons currently you can't pursue that far off because, oh no, I spent like 2 of my jumps and my recovery getting them, and now I've just got my dodge to get back. If they manage to hit me, that's it, I die too. I don't know, this one kind of leaves your resources intact, and I really like that.
That's a problem to me. With the play style that I think that they're going for, this kind of really aggressive, on top of you constantly, no room to breathe kind of style, it should be high risk, high reward. If you're overcommitting on the edge, you should be dead. Is more or less how I see it. But I think I saw EXO a while back when this first got released say something to the regard of it should come down to signatures for kills. This is a weapon that should be able to rack up a lot of damage for with all of its light attacks and aerials and whatnot, but not have enough force to kill without either insane damage or reasonably good signatures. And so the question mark here is signatures, because they haven't shown anything as far as even character design for something like Gauntlets, which I do want to go back to in a little bit. But yeah, I don't know, just kind of touching on your point of like it still leaves options. I think that's a problem. I think if you're Lance Sayre, back when it was insane, when you were getting Sayre strings and you killing people at yellow, and then you can just Sayre back, that's a problem. So it should be high commitment, and if you mess up, then you're in trouble. But as far as character design goes, I'm kind of curious to see where they go with it. Obviously, it screams there's going to be like a boxer guy, right, with like boxing fists. But what other kind of characters can you really get out of gauntlets? What kind of skins can you get for gauntlet weaponry that isn't going to be too much like a Qatar? That's kind of what I'm curious about, and I don't know if y'all have any opinions about things like that.
Yeah, I mean, so the character that they sort of showed in the test was one that, maybe the community has seen in some of the old skin leaks. But it was basically like this robotic android guy with this, electronic face. And so, that's sort of one option. Obviously, the boxing is the obvious pick for someone with gauntlets, but also like, some sort of knight. I know we've had Sir Roland already. But I'm sure there's some way that BMG can come up with a knight-like character that's not really a knight that we've already seen. He'll have some sort of really, it's a metal-covered fist, right? Like that's armor that could be used as a gauntlet. Little bits and pieces like that. Obviously, I know the guys at BMG, they're pretty creative. They've come up with a lot of things so far. So there's definitely the concern of, how far can you go with, gloves? But I think there's enough options that we can see some mileage out of this weapon.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, not even just that. You can go for some more bestial characters, that would just kind of use their fists or claws. And I'm not talking like long Qatar claws like, you see from a Surrey or anything. More like I am an animal, I use just my paws, fists, whatever. And, especially since I know everyone in the community has been talking about wanting, maybe like some more animal-like characters, some less humanoid-like characters, and that's definitely something that they've heard. So, I don't know, that might be a good setup for that kind of path to take.
Yeah. Well, I think we're about out of time now. But I think that was a really enjoyable discussion. Designated Asian, thank you for providing some counterpoints. I know I'm a very Qatar heavy person, so I was very excited about this weapon. But it's always good to have a good opposing view. Thank you to Techie for being our guest this week. As he mentioned, if you guys have any questions about sponsors in the future, go hit him up. Thank you, TWK. Thank you, Designated Asian, for helping me co-host this week. And finally, of course, I want to go ahead and thank all the viewers for watching, for listening. Next week, I'm afraid BCS 2v2 battle is going along. And as far as scheduling conflicts between the people, it's going to be kind of rough. So next week, we are taking a break from the podcast. There won't be an episode 3 next week. You'll have to tune in the week after that. But I will see you then. And thanks for tuning in. Bye for now.